Whether it's bad planning, bad luck, bad timing, or bad inventions, well-intentioned bad decisions have plagued history for thousands of years. Welcome to Historic Hindsight.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom, and today we're going to talk to you about hallucinating.
Hallucinating on the Green Ferry, Johnny, taking that trip.
That's right.
Seeing some green pixies flying around while we drink the ever-forbidden absinthe and talk about its history.
No, we can't drink that. I'm drinking beer because that's highly illegal on account of its hallucinogenic properties, right?
Well, it was highly illegal for years, but back in 2007, they finally relinquished the prohibition on it. But we'll get into the whole history of absinthe today while we drink. I was hoping that you were going to find a crappy, cheap absinthe, but apparently
I just
you did
didn't
not.
have a chance to, and I knew I'd hate it.
Well, I don't think you're going to hate it. Well, you'd hate the cheap one.
I might
yes,
not.
You're going to hate the cheap one. I don't think you're going to hate the good stuff because you do like. For those at home, if you don't know absinthe, it is a spirit that is comprised of wormwood, anise, and fennel. It has to have those three things, just like rums have to be distilled sugar cane. Absinthe has to be wormwood, fennel, and anise.
Yep. And the anise is what gives it that black licorice flavor that I might actually like, because I love black licorice jelly beans. I like, if I'm gonna drink a liquor, which I don't.
Johnny's
it's
typically
gonna
there, yeah.
be Jaeger, which is because it's basically black licorice jelly beans melted in liquor.
Well, that's very much if you don't like black licorice, you're not going to like absinthe. If you do like black licorice, this is going to be the drink of your choice for liquor because it is delicious. Now, the traditional means to drink it, as I'm doing now, it is a very high proof alcohol. We're talking about usually between 60 and 70% alcohol by volume, usually.
Percent, not proof.
Not proof. That's percent. Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
120, 140 proof.
Yeah, it's what it has to be minimum.
That's
so like liquor.
That's serious business.
Yeah, basically it would be drinking like whiskey that's cask whiskey, straight from the keg that's not been watered down. So you're supposed to water it down. I don't know how well it comes across on the camera, but as you water it down, it goes from like a dead brown green to this almost neon translucent green color, and it is the delicious way to do it. Now,
so it's like a concentrated food coloring that you add. The green looks dark, but then you put water and it lightens it up and makes it. Why is it green?
It is green because of the secondary part of the distillation, where they basically steep the liquor in additional wormwood, anise, fennel, other types of herbs and spices, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
That give it that greenish color. If you ever buy absinthe and it is a neon green color, that's food coloring.
That's the
avoid
best
it.
stuff?
Yeah, that's the absolute. That's avoid that stuff at all costs.
Because the green is an artificial additive, right? They're turning cheap liquor green.
Yeah, they're turning
it absinthe. That's why.
Yeah, basically they're taking like vodka and dumping in some anise flavoring and putting in green food coloring, and they're like, it's absinthe.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
Not,
So they're just dissolving those black licorice jelly beans and then adding some green food coloring. I mean, that doesn't sound bad though, but you're not gonna see the fairies and the dragons and have these hallucinations and everything.
And so I wanted to go into the story because it is legal in the United States now once again to consume absinthe because they discovered that it doesn't actually make you hallucinate, even the legit. What I'm drinking to start off with is the closest you can get to the original recipe of absinthe that ever, like the very first recipe of absinthe is Pinot. It's the longest running, longest recipe, oldest recipe of absinthe is from Pinot.
Now,
so you might be wondering, why are we talking about liquor here on Historic Hindsight? Well, it's because of the myths that are surrounded by absinthe and why absinthe became illegal and how it became illegal and all that fun stuff that goes into it, which is full of shenanigans. And really, I just wanted to put on my smoking jacket and drink some absinthe and have an excuse to do it. That's really what it is.
The United States' entire history with drugs and alcohol and everything else, as we've seen from our previous episodes on the drug wars, it's all arbitrary and they have ulterior motives. It's not actually because something's dangerous that they ban it. It's that they're able to arrest people, or certain people are using things that they don't like. So what was the case with this one?
But of course,
which way did they go?
Well, and this was a global thing. This wasn't even just the United States that banned it. Like this, there was a
Globally?
large global community that, not entire globe, but large global community. Most of Europe banned it as well. So it was an illegal spirit for well over a century due to its mystical powers to make you see green fairies, which it will not make you see green fairies.
Okay, why specifically green fairies? Was that just the lore
That's
that
just the
became
lore.
around it? It's
Yeah,
not
the
just
lore.
hallucinating. You will
It's
see
because-
green fairies.
It's because green absinthe, green fairies.
Great. So it's a marketing ploy. It's like Red Bull gives you wings. Absinthe
And-
makes you see green fairies. Like it's
It's meaningless. But it was a very popular drink by artists of choice, which is partly why there's that mystique of hallucinations, because when you have Hemingway, Oscar Wilde, Van Gogh that drink
okay.
this stuff, and they're writing some really trippy. Edgar Allan Poe was a big drink. So, I mean, reading Quote the Raven makes a hell of a lot more sense after you take a couple of drinks of absinthe. You're like, oh, hey, I get it.
All right, so the hallucination myth or whatever came from basically very creative people and probably alcoholics also, this being their drink of choice, and then just because they have wild imaginations and they're a little bit off their rockers, people thought, oh, they must be seeing things, or the fact that people see things are real.
Yeah, real, yeah.
But like wormwood is what gives it that property, right?
It contains
allegedly,
the allegedly,
that
yeah.
has
What's called food drip.
hallucinogens in
Well,
or
food
can
drip.
get.
It can. Well, we'll get there. So let's talk about the origin. We'll go all the way back to the original. Who first thought of this? So the origins are a bit foggy, but wormwood itself has been used for medical purposes as far back as ancient Egypt, where it was referenced on papyrus all the way back to 1550. There's the first documents of using wormwood, distilling it into a beverage for medical purposes. Go all the way back to.
And
1550.
now, what were the purposes? Was it pain relief? Was it like what were the medicinal properties, or what?
Well,
was it
Johnny,
curing?
it's like a cure-all, like all those magical.
Okay, so it's just an elixir.
It's an elixir, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right.
Ancient ancient Greeks also had an anise and wormwood flavored wine called Absinthius Onus, which I butchered that name completely, but very much gets to the origins of the name absinthe.
Okay.
Modern absinthe, as we know it, actually comes from Covette, Switzerland, around 1792. There are two legends. The first legend is that
Swiss, huh?
the Swiss, yeah. First
Okay.
legend is that a doctor by the name of Pierre Ordinaire invented it as a patent in medicine and sold it to the Henroid sisters of Covette, Switzerland. Yeah,
That is such a good name, Pierre Ordinaire. That's made
Pierre
up.
Ordinaire.
That-
Probably. There's actually
Holy cow,
there's
that's
actually a
fantastic.
good absinthe that's out there, Absinthe Ordinaire, that I think is probably
Okay,
a throwback
yeah.
to this guy. Yeah.
It's got to be. Yeah, that has to be. Okay, so the Swiss invented absinthe as
Yep.
we know it today.
Yeah,
essentially.
this doctor invented it as a patent medicine. He sold it to the Henroid sisters of Covette,
As
Switzerland,
medicine, of course.
who began distributing it as a medical elixir. There's also the other story that the sisters did it themselves, and there wasn't this doctor involved at all, and they just were selling the stuff off. You know, take it as you want. Doesn't much matter.
I'm gonna
Because-
guess that it was just the women and the man was involved, because that's how we are with things and people inventing things. It's got to be a man.
You're probably
So I'm
not
gonna
that.
guess that.
You're probably not that far off. The recipe, one way or the other, would fall in the hands of a major Major David, who opens the first commercial distillery known as David Pierre et Fils in Covette, Switzerland. He's the first one to actually distribute mass quantities, of absinthe.
He took it to the next level. He took it from
takes
a
it to the next
small
level.
batch thing to, so like if it were beer, he took it from your local town's brewery to like a Sam Adams or Sierra Nevada, a Stone type.
Yep. And he opens it with his son Marceline and his son-in-law Henry Louis Pernod. Hence Pernod.
Look at that! You got
And
his
Is-
absinthe.
yeah. In 1805, a second distillery is opened under the name Maison Pernod Fils in Pontlier, which is allegedly what I'm drinking now. That's
now-
when it got banned, they stopped making this recipe, but when it was re-legalized, they
Right.
brought the recipe out from allegedly.
Yeah,
I
it's-
mean, if you believe that.
It's prohibition style alcohol that
Yeah.
brewed it. Oh, we're using pre-prohibition recipes. Now this was still at this juncture being sold and marketed as medicinal.
At this
product,
point, it's
or
now
is
it's
this
now a
like
spirit. Yeah,
just
it's a spirit.
Okay.
Yep,
So once
yep.
they started ramping it up, they're like, "Oh wait, this is not just a magical elixir to cure people. This is something people just get drunk on and feel better because they're drunk.
Well,
and we can sell it to everybody."
And that drunk on feel better part comes with the military, because like all things with the military, a lot of popular drinks become popular through the military. And the military in France was actually giving absinthe as a malaria treatment. I'm pretty sure.
Treat malaria?
Yeah, to treat
That's
malaria.
not gonna work.
I'm pretty sure.
That
I'm pretty sure it didn't work, but they didn't care because they're drunk, so they're like,
Well, okay.
I don't care
All
about
right,
the
so-
malaria now.
Well, there's two ways to treat something. You treat the symptoms or you treat the problem. And they were just treating the symptoms.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It made them feel better. You make their life a little bit easier, a little bit more fun. They get to see green fairies. They get to hallucinate, fight dragons. Maybe, I don't know.
So, when when the coalition wars are on and off all during this time of period where they're getting this treatment for malaria.
We've not
with
talked
absinthe.
about those yet, right? Because that does not sound familiar.
No, very briefly. No, not really.
Okay.
When the soldiers come home, obviously they develop a taste for it, and so by 1860, the drink rose to such popularity that by 5 o'clock in the afternoon became known as the Era Verti, or the Green Hour, because most of the local distilleries and local bars and local taverns and all that fun stuff were selling absinthe, and it was very popular. It's a good afternoon drink. It does get you very drunk.
It's a happy hour.
It gets you very drunk, but it's a light drink. It doesn't even though it's high in alcohol, it's delicious to me. It's like drinking candy.
Oh, so it's dangerous because you're not going to notice how drunk you are getting. That's essentially where you're going with that?
Yeah, well, allegedly it also makes you have
if you
a clearer,
water it down.
Yeah, you have a clearer head. It's like a clearer drunk, I guess, although... it does make my face go numb, which is nice. No, it's not clear.
I don't think
no,
that's
I'm just giving
how
you that. But in any
that
case,
works.
It becomes.
So they had their first happy hour. So 5
Yep.
o'clock instead
5
of
o'clock,
happy hour, it was the green
hour.
hour.
The green hour.
And
And it's very popular amongst all social classes, which is where you start to run into some problems, because the rich tend not to like things that the poor like, and vice versa, and so it becomes a little
Hence
bit
the
of a problem.
cocaine, crack, cocaine, powder cocaine, crack cocaine differences. Okay. And so now that the peasants are also enjoying this beverage, how do they make that happen less?
Yeah, right. Well, and we're going to get there in a second. So
it
quickly spreads
that's
out.
the age-old question.
It quickly spreads outside of France and Switzerland, all over the corners of the world. It'll make its way to the United States through New Orleans, where it becomes the base part of the very first cocktail ever invented, at least in the United States, the Sazerac. It's one of the base parts of a Sazerac.
So what is
So basically, a
am I putting you on the
Sazerac.
spot? What's a Sazerac?
Yeah, a Sazerac is you take absinthe and you wash the glass with absinthe. So basically, you take a little bit of absinthe, you coat the whole glass with absinthe to get that dark liquor smell.
Sure.
You then take a brandy, pour some brandy on it with a little bit of bitters. You got yourself a Sazerac. Very delicious.
That's it. So it's a brandy with a coated glass, a hint of absinthe. But I guess it's not watered down, and you're supposed to water it down. So even having that little bit's going to give it the flavor because it's so concentrated.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
There you go.
While it became popular, it also became popular with the Bohemians, who are those dirty, wandering artists like Oscar Wilde and Van Gogh, and also amongst the intellectuals who are sitting there thinking, hey, maybe Napoleon's not the coolest guy in the world. Maybe we don't want a dictatorship. Maybe we don't. Maybe we don't.
Hold off. Let's take it a little bit easy on Napoleon. I feel like he got a bad rap. He was my height, and I don't have a complex. I'm fine. I'm huge.
By the 1880s, the French were actually consuming 36 million liters per year of absinthe.
36 million. And okay, also, what year was this? This is
1880s.
Okay.
In the 1880s.
The population of the world didn't explode until what? The baby boom, 1940s, 50s. Like, we had the population was not that great back then.
No,
it was very sparse.
But
it's
of course,
whole lot.
The base of absinthe, where you start with the distillation process, is the grapes. It starts as a brandy wine.
What?
And it gets distilled with the anise and wormwood in the distillation process. So the French were looking at this 36
wine
million.
And then distill it.
Yeah, basically.
essentially.
Yeah. So
Kinda,
so the
ish.
French were looking at this, going, "Oh, that's cutting into our wine. We don't, we
Don't
don't
like
like
that,
that."
yeah.
Now, while the French were consuming 5 billion liters of wine per year by this time,
With a B.
that 36 million liters was a perceived threat to the wine industry, who was like, "We're wasting good grapes to go into this, and I don't like
This is-
that. So we got to get rid
This
of
is
it."
literally what's happening with the beer wars in America right now. Like the microbrew industry has like 1 to 3% or something like that of the beer consumption and market and everything. And Budweiser, Miller, Coors hate that and are trying to snuff them all out or buy them all
By
out.
creating their own fake microbreweries. Like
Yeah.
Shock
They're
Top.
just making shit up and putting it on the shelves and being like, oh yeah, no, this is totally just like your brewery down the town, except it sucks.
Yeah, it does. So the wine industry and the temperance movements team up to begin a smear campaign against
There it
absinthe,
is. There
much
it is.
like what we
Yes.
see in the
Yes.
U.S. on the war of drugs. Smear campaign. They
Oh,
start
man.
making shit up. This is where the hallucinations start to come into play. They're like,
Yep.
all right, you're starting
Yeah,
to
so this
hallucinate."
is just ultra the equivalent of like ultra conservatives making shit up about beer and stuff during Prohibition
Yeah.
or liquor or whatever, and saying, oh well, it's so dangerous and this, that, and the other, and we have to get rid of it because of that. When really it was just, we don't like black people doing this thing.
Yes, pretty much. So they said that absinthe causes epilepsy and seizures. It doesn't. And they linked it to violent crimes and said that it causes upstanding Christians to go out raping women, because we can't have that.
Okay, well, to be fair, alcohol does lead to crimes. So that's not a lie. It's just that it's not
It's
exclusive
alcohol.
to
It's not
absinthe.
as exclusive to
It's
absinthe, no.
being drunk, and if you're an asshole, you're going to be more of an asshole. And if you're not an asshole, you'll likely not be. It just, it pumps the volume up of your personality is all it does. And so, yeah, I guess it would reduce inhibitions and cause people to do more crime. But no different than your wine, Mr. Frenchman.
Mr. Frenchman. Well, but the wine was okay, because we drink the wine with the dinner. The hallucination claims come wildly spurred on by a Dr. Valentin Magnin, who did some research. He was basically paid. He was paid by the wine industry and these temperance movements to do some research on absinthe. And
this is before we had people actually like peer review and do
reviewing,
double
yeah.
things. And,
Yep.
like this
Yep,
is
yep, yep.
not the way that research is done today.
No.
There is bullshit research, but it's not going to be approved. You just got to look into it a little bit.
So he gave, everything comes down to the wormwood. So wormwood does contain a chemical called thujone, which has been linked to thujone, Thujone, I think. Yeah, thujone.
Okay.
And thujone is a convulsant, like it's like in the same kind of family as alcohol. It does not cause hallucinations, but what he does is in the dose, at least not in the doses that you're going to get in absinthe. So what he does is he takes essence of wormwood, not absinthe. He takes the essence of wormwood, the wormwood oil itself, which has a billion times more concentrate of thujone than what you're actually going to find in a bottle of absinthe. And then he gives that to...
This is a very common trick.
He gives it to
from
lab
people
rats.
doing research.
If you watch our Diet Coke wars, this is Diet Coke research. Like this is.
It's the same thing. It's all the same. Anytime they're like, oh, we want to make this thing dangerous, all they do is they find a microscope, like a 10 parts per million or whatever or less thing in it, and they do tests on that, but they ramp up the concentration so much, and then they're like, oh, well, that's bad for you. It's like, okay, yeah, but many things in your blood are also super bad for you in a high enough concentration. And that's something your body makes. Like, it's not... Concentration matters, everybody. That's all I want to get across.
So
concentration matters.
He gives essence of wormwood to the rats, the lab rats, in high quantities. The lab rats start to have alleged epileptic fits, but there has actually never been any peer-reviewed research to corroborate any of this.
Really?
So
nobody else decided to give concentration.
Yeah.
See, okay,
So
that's
we
the
don't
other
know.
problem. Where's the scientific community on this? Who's looking at this and saying, "Oh, well, he did that, and that's
Well, they've tried.
causing this thing."
What I'm saying is they've
we don't
never.
wanna try to
It's
do it.
never been replicated. No, it's not.
So,
that it hasn't
so it wasn't real science.
His results haven't been able to be replicated.
Okay.
That's
So
the
it's
thing.
not real science.
And
because
because they were
science has
having-
to be able to be replicated.
Yeah. So because they were
By an
having
independent
epileptic fits, they must be hallucinating. You pair that up with with
That's a
the
stretch.
with the artists that are on it that are writing. I mean, look at Starry Night, Van Gogh's Starry Night, and then try to tell me that the guy's not hallucinating, which he very well could be, because something
Which
that
also,
was.
I'm gonna guess, absinthe's not the only thing that these artists are doing.
Well, yeah, and I'm gonna get
Like,
to, I'm gonna
I
get to
mean-
I'm gonna get to why the hallucination myths exist here in a second. So his results weren't being able to replicate, but he claimed that it was hallucination, and he also claimed that it led to increased aggression, which would lead to increased violence.
That I agree
Like I said,
with.
which could
Because
potentially-
alcohol
it's
is dangerous,
yes,
and that's
alcohol.
what it does. Like that, literally, alcohol has been proven, but people like it so much that we're never gonna get rid of it.
Now, once these rumors
tried
start
and
to
it
go
didn't work.
out, once these rumors start to go out and they start to get out into the real world, people try to they expect that they're going to hallucinate, so they're looking for that, and then when they go to look
Right.
for that and they buy a bottle of Pernod and it doesn't make them hallucinate, they go, well, that must not be the real stuff, so I must go out and find the real stuff. So you get these shady absinthe dealers that are starting to try to replicate those results. So things start to get mixed into the absinthe, perhaps mushrooms, things that do actually make you hallucinate. And then they
Actual
also,
hallucinogens.
Yeah, also hallucinogens. And of course, there's also that green fairy. Like it's got to be bright green. If it's not bright green, it's not absinthe. So then they start adding things into the mix to try to make it
color
bright
it,
green,
yep.
like copper salts,
I'm
which are super
Not-
healthy for the human.
I'm sorry, not food coloring.
No, copper
Like we
salts.
can't just add a color. We need to add copper salts.
Yeah. So a combination of the rumors, a combination of distillers mixing in some shady shit, and putting things like absinthe salts or cheap alcohol. A lot of times has antifreeze. What was it?
What?
Yeah, cheap alcohol has antifreeze in it. There was Fireball just got in trouble for this not that long ago because the parts of antifreeze per million was too high for the U.S. food market, and a bunch of that stuff got recalled. Like, just like 2 years ago.
I'm ignorant on this. What does antifreeze?
I think it
Do?
speeds up the distillation process or something. I'm not entirely sure why.
Okay,
it's
so
used,
it's
but I know
it's
that
a catalyst of some
yeah,
sort.
I know that it is
Okay.
used in cheap, which is also part of the reason why people went blind on crap moonshine was because antifreeze. But that was because they were taking car radiators and using them as stills and then not actually cleaning them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like,
okay.
here you go, guys. So that's all that. So that's where all the rumors come from. Also, one of the popular things to do with absinthe was to add laudanum to it, because laudanum was an over-the-counter opium painkiller, and it is very bitter, very awful. So people tended to cut it with the heavy
So they
black
would
licorice
ta-
flavor. So they would take opium and put it in opium
with
and
their alcohol.
put it with their alcohol, and then that's what would cause some hallucinations. Because you're taking opium.
yeah.
Opium's gonna do it. Opium's gonna do it.
Yeah, that'll happen. Also, I feel like there's also the placebo effect happening.
If you
that
think
if you
you're gonna
tell
find-
somebody, it's like giving somebody alcohol-free beer. If you do that and you don't tell them that that's what it is, they will exhibit the effects of alcohol, even though they're not actually drinking it. It's not for everybody, but that happens frequently. They've done studies on it, and it's because there's that placebo effect where if you think that you are getting drunk, you are going to get yourself drunk. If you expect to and think that you're going to hallucinate, you're going to convince your brain, and your
That
brain's
you're
pretty
hallucinating.
fucking powerful, that you're hallucinating. And
Sure
so,
will.
that combined with also doing it with opium,
That'll do it.
that'll do it.
That'll do it. Everything comes crashing down in 1905 when a Swiss farmer by the name of Jean Lanfray murders his family and attempts to kill himself after drinking 2 glasses of absinthe. Or at least that's what the propagandists tell you.
I think other things might have been happening in this guy's life.
Jean,
Have led
Well,
to this.
Jean Lanfray was a known alcoholic and had been rage drinking all day long on wine and brandy, and at the end of the day had himself a couple glasses of absinthe to top it off.
And that
was not
to be fair.
That wasn't
to
mentioned.
be fair. Everything else before that was just his daily dose of medication, and then he had the absinthe, and probably his family turned into to Green Fairy fighting demons because the Green Fairies are good and you want to see those, and they were fighting those demons, and so he had to kill him. And then he found out that he killed a couple himself in the process and felt too bad and had to kill himself.
Yep.
That's probably what happened. It probably didn't have anything to do with just severe alcoholism and abusive behavior in him just eventually snapping.
So over the next few years, there's actually 82,000 signatures that are written in Switzerland to ban absinthe.
That's a lot.
And by July 5th,
That's a lot for that time.
By July 5th, 1908, there's actually a referendum that's held, and absinthe was banned. In Switzerland. Now the Congo.
Okay, so Switzerland then was the first country to
they weren't
ban
the first. No, they weren't the first country to ban it. But that's just the country of origins bans it in 1908. The actual first country to ban it is the Congo Free State, and they banned it in 1898. But I don't think that really counts because it's the Congo Free State, and they weren't really letting you do much of anything. So I mean, I think it's more like them banning alcohol.
Everything was banned. So it was a little bit more prohibition and less about the fact that people were killing their families and themselves.
Yeah. Once Switzerland starts doing
Tommy,
it,
how many glasses have you had? Should I call somebody?
This is my second glass, and I started on a Pernod, which, by the way,
I gotta text your wife. I have to let her know. Tommy, she is in danger tonight.
She's in danger, yeah. So the first glass I drank was Pernod. It is fantastic.
So is that the one that? So if I'm
that's the Swiss style.
To me, what would you recommend me if I were to have my first bottle of absinthe? Go out and buy it.
If you want to drop the money, Pernod or St. George.
And what kind of money are we talking about dropping on these?
$70.
$70 for a bottle of alcohol?
It's like
a bottle of concentrated alcohol that you dilute over time.
Yeah. So it's.
I guess that's not bad. I know. I mean, people spend that and way more on wines and brandies and whiskeys and everything. I mean, any type of alcohol you can find very expensive versions of. Hell, there was like a 250 bottle of Sam Adams beer.
Yeah, just beer.
Not too long ago, like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was like 30% alcohol by volume or some shit like that. That's
the most I've spent on a small bottle of beer, like 12 ounces. I bought a $30 bottle of some type of.
Didn't we drink that?
It might have been Sam Adams. I tried it. It was shit.
I know you bought a.
I was so mad.
I know when I first had.
Because it tasted like liquor. Because it was like a super high proof or high ABV, and it tasted like liquor, and I don't like liquor. I'm like, I want beer.
But
anyway,
went back to the story. Once Switzerland, the European country, starts banning it, it starts to follow in suit. The Netherlands would ban it in 1909, 1912. The United States would ban it, and France would ban it in 1914. Spain and Portugal.
Now, the United States banned that was prohibition until later. Yeah, so they banned absinthe by itself.
Yeah, before prohibition.
I'm sorry. It's thunderstorming here, not at your house. For anybody at home watching.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Spain and Portugal would never actually ban it and continue production all the way through the whole time, as well as the Czech Republic. The UK also would not ban it, but they didn't actually become popular consumers of absinthe until about the 1990s. Which is where we get.
Why? They weren't on board. Did they have their own hallucinogens? Like what's
probably
going on
they probably had something that was a little bit better.
They didn't. They're just like, no, we like our pints of warm beer. These are room temperature beer.
Sweating profusely. Sorry at home for.
Oh, it's gross. Yeah, I'm sorry to everybody watching. I am just a
dripping mess. In the post-ban world, absinthe would become popular in the Eastern Bloc of Europe, and they would start developing the Bohemian absinthe, which is what I'm drinking, the Matahari.
So this is your current glass?
This is the current glass. It is a little bit more bitter, allegedly. It is bitter. It does cut the anise flavor down quite a bit, so it's not so much black licorice. And true.
Oh, well, that's not great. Don't love that.
No,
how green is it?
It's a little bit lighter than the Pernod, but not
like a nice mint green. From the looks of it. It has a little bit more. Probably you're not going to hallucinate too much on that.
And this is where the whole sugar cube starts to really become popular, and the lighting of a sugar cube become popular because in Eastern Bloc,
the lighting of they burn sugar.
So in the Eastern Bloc with absinthe during the post-ban in the Western Bloc of Europe, cheap, crappy absinthe started coming out. This Bohemian style absinthe, which is, like I said, a little bit less anise flavoring, a little bit more bitter, and that's where the whole sugar cube starts to get added into it with that stupid slotted spoon.
To balance out that bitterness.
And the Gothic movement movement gets a hold of it because of the whole hallucination myth and all that fun stuff. So
now,
then
when was the Gothic movement? What
like goth, like 1990s. Like we're looking at the 90s.
Okay, so
the Goths, like when we
the Goths, not the original Gothic movement, because that was before.
No,
right?
no. I'm talking about like
all right.
Like
You're talking about
goth,
skids.
People who like worship Satan, that kind of stuff, which is nothing against you. Like, if you want to be a witch or a Wiccan and worship the devil, I don't give a shit.
Oh, hell yeah, do your thing. But they like that because they thought it was
a dark,
similar to how the Native Americans used peyote to aid in their visions. I mean, they were hallucinating. And so the Goth movement used absinthe in the same way. And the Goth movement, the underbelly of America. I mean, good God, we can't. Right?
Can't have that. Yeah, that's what they were killing everybody in the 90s. So in the 90s,
oh my God, just the sacrifices. Yeah. My God.
So in the 1990s, the UK began importing it and drinking it and became really popular again with that whole Gothic movement. And that's where there's a Czech company that started
an
ad
British
campaign.
Goths? I didn't even think that was a thing.
Yeah, there's a Czech company.
Listen to a British Goth tell music, me about why they're so dark.
Have you seen England? Like it's. Oof.
I know, but I just picture everybody in England as super posh. And I know I'm way off, but it's just how I see it and how I want to envision it.
This Czech company decides to come up with an ad campaign. They're trying to embellish the whole art of drinking. I mean, it's an art form of drinking absinthe. And so they take the sugar cube.
Okay, you say art form. I think it's just a little excessive. It's a little much.
Yeah. You don't like my fountain?
It's a very no, I do. I love it, but it is a very Japanese way of approaching something.
Alcohol, yeah.
Like everything has to be a production, and it's everything has a purpose, and it's a very laid out and very precise in how you do everything. And that's just, I mean, look at me. That's not
you.
It's just not who I am or what I'm doing.
So the Czech company's trying to embellish this. So they take the sugar cube, and then in addition to having the sugar cube on top, while you drip the water on top of the sugar cube, they light it on fire. Which don't do that. This is 60%. This is 60% alcohol. Don't do that. You're gonna light the whole fucking thing on fire. Don't do it.
And what you're burning off
is the thing you want. Is the thing you want to drink. I never understood any of these flaming drinks. Why do you have a flaming drink?
If you just want these. Eat a jelly bean.
Eat a jelly bean. Yep, eat a jelly bean. They're delicious on their own.
Otherwise, don't put fire on your alcohol. You are burning off the alcohol.
So as the popularity increases in the UK, obviously the countries where it's banned, it starts to increase again in popularity. Like they're like, hey, I remember that. I want that.
I mean,
Can we have that?
How do you increase demand? You reduce supply. And how do you do that? You ban it.
And in England, they're starting to drink the Bohemian absinthe, and you get people who remember what real absinthe was, and they're like, that's not. You need to try the Swiss stuff. Like that's what you got to try the Swiss stuff.
That's not the good stuff that you're getting.
And so in the year 2000, La Fille Absinthe became the first absinthe legally distilled in France again, to recreate that whole Swiss original absinthe profiling. The ban actually in France would not actually be lifted until 2011. But it was able to be distilled there, largely through the UK, really building it back up. In the early 2000s, there was an effort by the Lucid and the Kubler distilleries that started hounding the American market, wanting them to reopen it up because it was very
absinthe. Please, can we have access to your market?
Yeah, pre-ban.
Let us have your money.
Pre-ban absinthe was huge in New Orleans. It was huge in our like. Look at almost every old cocktail recipe. It has absinthe in it in some way, shape, or form.
It's all absinthe based.
A lot of them are, yeah. A lot of the early bitters were absinthe based.
And I imagine New Orleans has a lot of that because of the
French thing,
kind of that also, and they have a very the voodoo.
Down
there. They're very kind of, I don't even know what to call it, spiritual but metaphysical, like kind of beside themselves. And so if they have a drink that they can convince themselves that makes them hallucinate or be able to connect with different spheres, worlds, whatever the hell, they're gonna cling on to that. So New Orleans is like a perfect
hotbed for that. Yeah,
hotbed.
Just
yeah.
it's also just a hotbed of mixing cultures that you can get anything that you want pretty much.
Oh my God!
But
yeah,
so New Orleans
it's
is
dirty South and dirty French and dirty Americans and
dirty Spanish and all kinds of yep. So basically,
Good for you,
representatives
New Orleans.
from Lucid and Kubler were arguing that absinthe shouldn't be banned because the current ban applies to thujone content in food via the FDA. So when absinthe was banned, it wasn't like absinthe itself was banned; it was the thujone content. So basically, the FDA
Now,
said,
okay, but wait, when the FDA didn't exist when it was originally banned, did they? When did the FDA?
I don't know. But
I thought the FDA was much later, but the current restrictions that the FDA came up with were to continue banning it or whatever was
based on
or to accept it was based on that.
So
that's what they came
the
up
FDA said that anything that contains wormwood that's meant for human consumption cannot contain thujone. But the kicker here at all. But the kicker here is that all doesn't actually mean at all. It means 10 parts per million or less does not count as having thujone in it.
Right,
so,
because with most things, 10 parts per million or less is just completely negligent. You're not going to see any sort of effect from it. With most things. Now, there are things that can cause damage at that concentration, but for the most part,
this wasn't it. No,
that's harmless. Yeah,
yep.
Which is probably where the FDA came up with that number. Is that number below 10 parts per million is completely harmless to human consumption.
Lucid and Kubler proved that absinthe, take any bottle of absinthe off the shelf, even if it does contain wormwood, does not have 10 parts per million or more content of thujone. So,
on account of the distillation process and everything else that happens, they're not getting that high concentration that could be damaging.
Which it still was proven not to be damaging. And a lot of the bans got rolled. Well, a lot of the bans got rolled back because they started looking at thujone and wormwood and found that it's not a hallucinogen
not bad
at all.
Actually,
it's not.
It is
no worse for you than alcohol.
It's literally just a licorice flavored alcohol.
It's no worse.
That's what we're
dealing
with.
Yeah, it's no worse than
with
alcohol
legend behind it.
With legend behind it. So they proved that it doesn't have it, so the ban is lifted. So along comes 2007. Lucid becomes the first absinthe in the United States since its ban in 1912. But Lucid, for those at home, if you do drink it, it's expensive. It's like $80 or $90 a bottle, and it is not.
That's a lot.
They take the absinthe and the bitter level way, way down. And by the thing, I don't find absinthe to be bitter at all. I don't know why people put sugar in it. I find it to be naturally a little sweet. Not sweet, but like sweet. Like black licorice is sweet. And I don't really find it bitter. I find the flavor delicious, but I'm also, like, I will eat, like, black licorice candies all day long.
Oh, hell yeah. All day. And so, I'm guessing it's for the people, I'm guessing it's for the people who have taste buds that tell them that black licorice is a bitter
gross
object, and that's why they don't like it. That's why, because it's like it's probably similar to people, like, there's a gene with cilantro that makes some people, it tastes like soap to them.
Yep. So
it's probably similar to that.
Something like that, yeah. So there are 3 rules in the United States for absinthe. It has to contain less than 10 parts per million thujone. Absinthe cannot be the name brand or the standalone on the bottle. So you'll notice that none of these bottles just say absinthe on them. They say something else, like Absinthe Supreme, Absinthe Bohemian.
So arbitrary.
It's so stupid. Absinthe Le Bleu.
That
Le
why?
Bleu means clear. Because it's so stupid. And that 3...
that doesn't make sense. There's no reason for that rule. What old-ass senator or congressman or whoever the fuck put that in there saying we have to have this language?
And that 3, the packaging bottles cannot contain any images of hallucination, psychotropic, anything, mind-altering images, any of that kind of stuff.
Well, that's fair, because that'd be false advertising.
Which I find hilarious because one of the bottles that you'll find in the store has, like, Van Gogh's face on it and all kinds of weird, trippy images on it.
He was a real person.
Yeah, but
and he had a real art style. That existed, and they probably just did it in that style.
And in, like I said, in 2007, Absinthe Lucid becomes the first one. There's also the first homemade, United States absinthe to be produced since the ban, which was St. George, which first began being produced in December 2007, which is also very, very, very delicious if you can find it. It's hard to find right now for some reason, like anything coming out of California, anything.
Well, that's probably a regional distribution thing.
Yeah, it's hard to find.
Here out in California, you can probably find it pretty easily, or anywhere kind of west of the Mississippi, likely. There's been all sorts of weird alcohol distribution limitations.
But that's absinthe in a nutshell. I had 2 bottles. I'm not hallucinating, although I am sweating profusely.
No,
my
2 glasses. Not 2 bottles.
2 glasses. Yeah, 2 glasses.
hopefully not 2 bottles, I guess, because in that case I have to warn not only your wife and family of your
But the entire
upcoming
community?
murderous spree, but the entire community, and that would be a little bit much.
That would be a bit much. So that's absinthe in a nutshell, guys. Go home and try some if you like black licorice. You will be pleasantly surprised at how delicious it is and non-hallucinating. It's very good. It's a very good drunk.
I'll find it sometime and let you know if I like it or not. That's it for this week in Historic Hindsight. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and join us next week when we talk about Paul Revere.